Word on Health, the report with its finger on the pulse of popular medicine with Paul Pennington. Word on Health, for your very best of health. More than 150,000 people in the UK live with multiple sclerosis, or MS as it's otherwise known. It's a chronic, incurable, often disabling disease of the brain and the central nervous system, where the body's own immune system mistakenly attacks the protective coating of nerve fibres, called the myelin sheath, causing communication problems between the brain and the rest of the body. Claire Winchester is from the MS Trust.
MS can impact on people's lives in a lot of different ways. It's a really complex neurological condition, and it's very highly individualised as well. So one person might have problems with vertigo and balance and have mobility problems as a result of that. Somebody else might have problems with muscle stiffness and spasms and coordination, and thus have mobility problems because of that. So you can have the same impact on, the same kind of outward outcome in terms of somebody struggling to walk for long distances, but it could be fatigue or stress or all sorts of other things that come into why that might be. It is, in many senses, a progressive condition. MS tends to be diagnosed as one of a number of different subtypes. It is all one condition, but those different subtypes reflect the degree to which there is progression going on or kind of inflammatory activity. So the inflammatory activity would be around people who are having lots of what we call relapses, flare-ups of symptoms and potentially disability. And they can vary from uncomfortable to catastrophic. And those might be everything from vision, bladder, bowel, sexual dysfunction, fatigue, mobility problems, dexterity issues, weakness, muscle spasms. The list goes on and on. There's no one symptom which really defines MS.
Claire, you've recently released a report based on research with MS patients that shows across the UK as a whole, around 96,000 people with MS are effectively imprisoned in their own homes.
We realise what we've been doing is we've been really underestimating the number of people who need somebody else with them to be able to leave the house, whether that's somebody to actually drive them or somebody to support them on public transport or accompany them somewhere. And there was a huge proportion of our respondents to our survey said they wouldn't consider leaving the house if they didn't have some trusted support with them. And that is a huge blow to people's independence. It shows us a massive amount of reliance on particularly carers within the family, as well as paid carers too. And a lot of people are just looking at the complexity of planning, struggling, coping with the symptoms, managing their MS and leaving the house and thinking, I just won't bother. I could if I had to, but I won't. And so they save their energy for the time they absolutely have to get to a neurology appointment or an MRI scan. And other than that, it's simpler not to bother because it would just take so much effort and stigma and stress. And so people just don't leave the house. And that we think that has huge implications for people's not just independence and ability to hold down a job, but also things like social exclusion and the ability to engage in just the ordinary daily activity, seeing people, going shopping, or walk in the park, really simple things, and it has a profound impact.
How do we start to address that?
I think it's fair to say that a lot of people get their homes well organised with the rails and the furniture in the right place and supportive technology at home. And a lot of places pride themselves on being accessible. There's ramps and there's disabled toilets and there's smooth, easy signage and that's great. But so often it's in between the two that's so difficult. The most disabling place is quite often the road outside your own house. You get out of your house and you get onto the step and there's no drop curb. The pavements are overgrown. You can't get your rollator across them or your wheelchair. There's not an accessible public transport service that you can reach from your home. And we think there's a lot people can do in their own locations, in your own towns and cities, to identify what the barriers are and alert the people that can do something about it. So it's not like there's a single aha moment. If we just did this, everything would be fixed.
And the MS Trust has put together a toolkit to enable people with the condition, available off your website, to do just that.
We want to empower people who are affected by MS to identify what the problem is in your area, in your street, and tell the council, tell the people that can do something about it, and get your priorities up on the list of regional priorities for your area. It really is just about signposting people to the right places. And where do you start with getting someone to cut back the hedges on your walk into town? Where do you start with identifying where a good place for drop curb would be that would allow you to cross the road safely in your wheelchair? Where are there places that is just unsafe for somebody to go unaccompanied? It's about highlighting those hotspots of danger and making sure that councils, local authorities, social services, anywhere that you want to go to understands your needs. We've talked quite a lot about the kind of the mobility aspects here, and that's often very visible. Sometimes the first time you notice somebody has MS is when they start to use a walking aid of some kind, whether that's a crutch or a cane, or whether it's a wheelchair or a mobility scooter. But there's a lot of other hidden disabilities with MS as well. So things like access to clean toilets where there's a shelf and a sink so you can self-catheterize, for example, if you have bladder or bowel issues. If there's clear signage or the ability to take breaks if you're struggling with fatigue, all those sorts of things. And with disability generally, if you put in something to help somebody with a disability, you're helping the rest of the community. You're helping all the parents pushing buggies. You're helping all the delivery men with stuff as well. So there's just a lot you can do helping their wider community to become a much more accessible and less isolated place.
My grateful thanks to Claire Winchester. To find out more and to link through to the MS Trust, visit our website, wordonhealth.com. That's wordonhealth.com.
Word on Health, for your very best of health.
Womb cancer, also known as endometrial and uterine cancer, affects approximately 9,700 people annually. That's 27 people every day across the UK. Yet, recent research from the Peaches Womb Cancer Trust shows that just under 1 in 5 women have never heard of it. Social stigma, symptom overlap, misconceptions about risk, underrepresentation in public health campaigns and lower visibility in the media are all thought to contribute to low awareness, something Peaches Womb Cancer Trust is looking to help overcome. Kath Kennedy is a clinical nurse specialist with the charity.
Peaches Womb Cancer Trust is a charity that was established in 2020 by medical professionals and clinicians who had recognised that there was a gap for patients specifically with womb cancer and endometrial cancer. There wasn't the support outside of their clinical team, which is hugely beneficial for these ladies who come away from their appointments and think, I have so many questions, and the clinical team aren't always accessible. So they recognised this and wanted to establish a charity to support these ladies. And the focus being raising awareness, which is hopefully what we're doing today, fundraising for research into the disease and treatment, and also as a support for women.
So, Kath, let's start at the very beginning. What is womb cancer?
There are 5 gynecological cancers. Womb is the most common. It's the 4th most common cancer in women, and it originates within the womb. You'll also hear the term uterine cancer because we often refer clinically to the womb as your uterus.
Doing my research, I see there are a number of misconceptions about womb cancer, such as the belief that only older postmenopausal women develop it. And as your charity's research bears out, many women assume that cervical screening checks for all gynecological cancers, including womb cancer, which of course it doesn't. And this in turn leads to a false sense of security. Early diagnosis of womb cancer is key. Sadly, for 1 in 5 women, it's diagnosed in the late stages. Talk me through the signs and symptoms to look out for.
Focusing on the postmenopausal women to begin with, the biggest symptom that we're looking for is any abnormal bleeding. And that can be quite obvious red blood, or it can also be like pink discharge, brown discharge, or just a persistent watery discharge. That if you're postmenopausal, you should not be experiencing that. And a lot of older ladies are embarrassed about presenting with that symptom, or they'll just dismiss it because they might have just one episode. So they'll think, oh, it's fine, I'll just leave that, it'll be nothing to worry about. And then they don't go and see the GP. So even if you've just experienced those things, a small amount just on one occasion, we want you to go and get that investigated. In terms of other symptoms that people might have, it's persistent tummy pain, it's changes to your bowel and bladder habits, and it's weight loss as well. So any of those symptoms, we would encourage people to go and have further investigations. One of the problems with getting a diagnosis with younger women is that the symptoms that people experience are often masked by other conditions. So, for example, if you present yourself at a GP surgery because you've got abnormal bleeding and you're pre-menopause, they won't jump to the concern or a red flag that this is a cancer. They'll put it down to other things such as fibroids, polyps, changes to your hormones, being perimenopausal. So the big thing there is if your periods are changing and they're becoming a lot more heavier, if you're experiencing any bleeding after intercourse, any spotting, anything like that that's unusual for you, or if you're having regular pink discharge that's changed, so it's away from your normal, what was your normal in your monthly cycle, then that's worth investigations to just rule it out. And as I said, they would also potentially experience tummy pains, changes to bowels and bladder habits. It doesn't necessarily mean you've got cancer if you're experiencing these things, but let's rule that out.
My grateful thanks to Kath Kennedy. To find out more and to link through to Peach's Womb Cancer Trust, visit our website, wordonhealth.com. That's wordonhealth.com.
Word on Health, for your very best of health.
Across the UK, 21 independent air ambulance charities operate around 39 helicopters and complete more than 45,000 missions every year. That's around 126 flights every day, delivering urgent life-saving care directly to those that need it. These vital services aren't funded by taxes or the NHS. Every mission is only made possible thanks to generous donations from local communities and sponsors. One such charity is the Midlands Air Ambulance Service. Their spokesperson, Julian Spears, is Clinical Operations Manager and a critical care paramedic.
Midlands Air Ambulance was established back in 1991. It was a group of doctors from the trauma centre that came together and recognised that it would be excellent for patient care within the West Midlands region. We weren't the first. I think we were the third nationally because Cornwall had set up first because of the geography of the area. But we've got one of the biggest air ambulance operating practices in the UK now, and we've got 3 aircraft across 6 counties.
Julian, what types of emergencies do you most often attend?
The focus in the early days was predominantly sort of trauma-based. It was car crashes and accidents and incidents. That was how it was for many, many years. But actually, over the last few years, we've been offering additional services like cardiac arrest cars, and we had 3 of those that operated in the north, the central and the southern end of the patch as well to increase the hours. So we've actually seen around about 55% is medical jobs these days. So we're generally going to the sort of types of incidents that the ambulance service categorises as the CAT ones, the life-threatening emergencies such as the cardiac arrests, major trauma accidents such as, multiple car crashes, falls from height and that kind of incident as well. But we pick up quite a large rural contingent. So there's a lot of equestrian accidents, there's a lot of agricultural incidents that happen across the region. So we really do get a mixed caseload and you're never really sure what you're going to get.
Give me an idea of the specialist training that air ambulance crews receive.
When I first started on the helicopter, it was an extension of the normal paramedic skills. So you would find the skills that you would find on a normal road ambulance, and all we were doing was providing the different vehicle. Over the past 10 years or so, we've certainly seen an increase in the training that's been given to us. Our training course now, from somebody joining us as a trainee through to when they are a fully fledged critical care paramedic, is around about 2 years. We have to go through a fairly rigorous selection process as well, because we do get quite a lot of applicants who are coming because it looks exciting, but they may not necessarily have the right aptitude to join the team. We are dealing with the most complex cases that you are likely to get from every 999 call. So we needed to make sure that we've got the absolute right member of the team who's able to be a good communicator, be clinically excellent, and also have the level of knowledge of understanding to be able to take on new skills as they arise.
And finally, what are the biggest challenges facing air ambulance services like yours at the moment?
Sadly, I think probably the main one is funding. Aviation is an expensive business. Medicine is an expensive business. If you combine the two, they are doubly expensive. We are reliant on the generosity of the public. We don't get any funding from the NHS. Whether that's right or wrong is not for debate here. But with the increasing cost of living and the increased pressure on everyone's pockets, their ability to sustain direct giving is reduced. And that's something that we must be mindful of. We've got a fundraising team that has to raise in excess of £16 million every year to keep our 3 aircraft flying for the Midlands region. It's increasingly difficult. So we're always looking for other opportunities to make savings or to make money in other ways as well. We've recently diversified in clinical training. Whilst we're training our own clinical staff, there's an opportunity for us to be selling these courses on to others as well. So we offer a wide range of training from first aid at work all the way through to specialist critical care transfer courses. So there's lots of income opportunities. We're trying to explore all of them because we are recognising that this is what is allowing us to continue the life-saving service.
My grateful thanks to Julian Spears. To find out more and to access the latest edition of our podcast, visit the wordonhealth.com website. That's wordonhealth.com.
Word on Health. On air and online 52 weeks of the year with Paul Pennington. Word on Health. Your personal prescription for your very best of health.